Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to have a listen to our first webinar, the Enterprise Steps Whistle Stop Marketing. I'm your presenter. I'm one of the Enterprise Steps Advisor team. And just a quick overview on my background. I'm an experienced business owner. I run a marketing agency, have done for the last 10 years. We focus on working with the creative industries, food and technology clients. And prior to that, my whole background has been advertising, radio, television. So the Enterprise Steps program, this is just the first, hopefully, of a set of webinars. And today, I'm just going to give you an overview of the things that you need to be looking at and thinking about with regard to your marketing. It can be a really daunting subject, and especially when you first start your business. There are just so many things to do, but marketing is part of that really vital initial mix, and it's really important that you include it in everything that's going to help make your business successful. So one of the first things I want to just be looking at, if I can do next on my screen, is thinking about planning. One of the reasons that you're doing your marketing is to make sure that you can support your business objectives. So whatever you set out in terms of what you want your business to achieve, you need to have a plan to help you to achieve that. And the marketing will help you to deliver. The marketing not only covers the straightforward ads or digital activity, it also covers the product, making sure it's a finished product, ready for distribution, and all of the elements around that. So it's quite important to think about how the marketing will support your actual business plan. So you need to have a plan. Clearly, you do need to have a business plan, which is why when you come and see us on the Enterprise Steps program, it's one of the things we're going to ask. It doesn't have to be kind of ready on the day, but at least if you've got some initial ideas, we can supply you with some draft templates that you can put everything in that draft template to help you formulate what the business will achieve and therefore what the marketing will achieve. So when you have a marketing plan, the marketing plan is going to address the sales figures, how you're going to achieve the volume of sales. It's going to have an actual sort of an outline of this is what we need to do. If we're going to try and get 100 customers by the end of year one, these are the activities that we're going to put in place for that to happen. So the planning is really, really crucial. What you don't want to happen is you start your business and then you have no real activity plan, marketing activity plan. Things come up, you decide to spend the money on it, and you get disappointed because it's not the right result. It's not the right people that came through. It ended up costing you a lot of money because you just kind of jumped on a bandwagon, or you were persuaded by a salesperson to spend your money. So it's really important to have a marketing plan. Again, that doesn't need to be difficult, and you can get a draft planner from any one of the advisors on the program. It's going to have things in a really straightforward way, like a 12-month timeline. What are you going to do in month 1? What are you going to do in month 3? What are you going to do in month 9, etc., etc. And it should cover all aspects of marketing. So it will probably cover initially things like, what email marketing you're going to do, what social media activity you're going to be undertaking, if you're going to do any direct mail activity, if you're going to be, out in a shopping centre, or if you're going to be doing pop-ups or anything along those lines. So that's the sort of thing that your marketing plan should cover. So the first thing to really help you to decide what activity you should be doing is for you to be thinking quite closely about your customers. Now, in order to have a kind of a coherent plan, you do need to be clear about who you're speaking to. If you haven't got a good sense of who your target group is, you may well end up spending money unnecessarily or just targeting just the wrong set of people. How many times have you, looked at, for example, an event, you've read the information about the event, you thought that looks like my set of people, that could be my group of people that could be interested in what I do. You've attended the event and it hasn't been quite right. You want to try and find out as much information as you can about that activity and about your target group as well to see how they match. So I always say to people, or the headline I always use is, what does your customer have for breakfast? I always say, find out as much as you possibly can about your target group or groups, and it's invariably going to be more than one set of people. You know, there's lots of really straightforward ways that you can do this. You can simply do just research on the ground. If you're making a product and you want to test it, you could be in a busy area and test it, or you could simply do a questionnaire, or if you've got a target group that are in a particular sort of forum or something along those lines, you can ask those initial questions. But it's really important that you identify your target groups, because by identifying them clearly, it will help you to decide to how best to spend your money, really. It will help you to understand where your target group lives in a simple way, but you know, where they shop, where they buy their goods, what their buying habits might be like. It starts to give you that source of information. Those of you who have already done this and know quite intimately who their target group is, so you may be your own target group, you will know that in order to attract your attention, potentially a potential supplier needs to be in a certain place. They need to catch you at a certain time of day. They need to catch you in a certain environment. Perhaps it's when you're with your family, perhaps it's when you're with your children, perhaps it's at 7 o'clock in the evening online. The more you know about your customer, the better it is for you, the more targeted your activity. One of the ways to do this is to create a persona. There are lots of great online templates. Just type in marketing persona, and lots will come up, lots of examples. But what the personas are kind of a snapshot, really, of who your target group is. And it may well be that it's, you know, Mrs. P, who lives in the suburbs, has 2 children, and does X, Y, Z. And you slowly build up a story about the way they live, really, to give you a sense of, right, how do I approach this particular group of people? What's going to appeal to them in terms of what I do? So creating a persona is a really good way for you to start to really understand who your target group is. And I'd be really interested to hear, perhaps in at the end, how other people have helped to define their audiences. So knowing your audience is kind of paramount to this whole thing. It means you spend money wisely, you don't waste money, you're better informed about the language that you use with customers and with your marketing activity. The next thing that I wanted to talk about a little about was branding, and I have to say none of this is in any order. All of these things are important. When people talk about branding, of course, it does mean more than just the logo. When we're really talking about branding, we're talking about somebody being able to talk about your company and have a sense of personality about your company. So, you know, people always use the example of something like John Lewis or Innocent Drinks or something along those lines, because you get a sense of the personality of the business. And this is what you want to create. So the branding is, yes, it's the look of who you are, but it's also the feel of the business. That means when they come onto your site, it's the language that they use. When they call your reception, it's how that phone call is answered. When they make an order with you, it's not only the experience, the one-to-one experience, but it's also potentially when they receive the order, what does that look like, what additional information is in the order, etc., etc. So it's an experience that runs seamlessly right through the whole of them dealing with you and working with you. I always give this this example. Lakeland, who are, I think, in Westfield, in London, they have a huge direct mail service. And one of the touches, which is really, really lovely, is that they, when they send out their products, it always has a little card with the packer's name on it. So it will say, you know, your products were packed by Joe today. And it's just such a lovely thing. It's just a simple thing, and it reflects a lot how the company is and how they operate. And it is a family business, by the way, so that is reflected in kind of right throughout the whole of the site and the whole experience. So it's really good for you to think about your brand, what you're about. What do you want when people talk about your company or mention your name? What do you want people to say about you? Because in order for that to be true, you need to put things in place for that to happen. So think about what are the things that you could put in place for that to come alive. For example, do you need to address when somebody calls into your business how the phones are answered? Do you use an answer phone service? Does it create the right impression? Is it the right message? When you're dispatching materials or sending out emailers, what do your headers and your footers look like? Are they kind of fun and quirky? Are they a bit more corporate and professional but still with personality? These are all little touches where people think, oh yeah, I remember them. Because the trouble is, the truth is, there's a lot of everything out there and it can be quite hard to be noticed. So all the small things in the way you operate, which helps to constitute your brand, make the difference. So it'd be really good to think about, if you haven't kind of nailed this down, and I have to say, people come into the program thinking, oh, I want to create my brand, I want to do this, I want to do that. This happens over time. This doesn't happen overnight. Yes, you might start with a fantastic logo that really stamps and gives a good sense of personality, but the rest of it develops over time. So don't expect to get it right. And even when you get started, you're probably going to kind of evolve who you are and what your business is about. But it's really useful to have kind of a few exercises in place that can help you decide this. So I tend to do, a whole workshop on this, but 2 or 3 questions I always ask people. One of them would be, if your company was a colour, what colour would it be? And I ask people to explain what that is. And more often than not, the colour that the company is now, actually physically on their website and things like that, and the colour that the owner says, completely different. And that combined with things, if you were a book, what book would you be? If you were a film, what film would you be? When you add all these things together, it does give a bit of a personality. Because very often, when you're starting up a business, the personality is about the original founder. So let's not overlook that. So those are just really simple exercises to say, how do I want to be perceived? Do I want people to think I'm kind of really corporate, smart, and this and that? Do I want people to think that I'm kind of more quirky and I've got a bit of more of a twist to the traditional route that my industry goes down? So really interesting to think about your brand and how you do business and how that can emanate throughout everything that you're doing. Equally important in this whole exercise, and it all happens at the same time, yes, it does feel like loads, I know, is for you to study your competition. If you don't do this, you will not know where you kind of sit in the marketplace. And most importantly, if you're in a really saturated market where people can have the choice of many, how you differentiate yourself. When you understand what your competitors are doing, you can organise your offering accordingly. You can talk knowledgeably to people that make inquiry of you about the difference between them using yourselves or a competitor, and not talked about in a disparaging way, but definitely identifying the advantage of using yourselves over someone else. There's a great confidence in understanding where you sit in the marketplace. If you're just offering a service and don't really know who your competitors are, don't really know how they operate, what their model is, or anything like that, it can be you're at a disadvantage. So explore who your competitors are. Look on their websites. Be cheeky and sign up for their stuff to see how they do it. See how often they're sending out messages. See if they're sticking stuff through the post and using direct. See how they're doing that. It's worth your while. It's definitely worth understanding what they're doing, how they're doing, and really you can find out really easily and very, very quickly. I'm not going to go on that too much. One of the areas is understanding what your route to market should be. Let's assume you do know who your target group is, you know where they are, you've identified that, you know, your set of people are particularly open to digital activity, but it could be equally that their mums and, you know, activity around maybe supermarkets or children's forums or things like that might be another route. Helping you to decide is all that activity we've talked about before. But we don't have unlimited budgets. I do understand that. And sometimes you need to have a complete focus on 2 or 3 things initially, really work them properly, put hand on heart and say, you know, I've worked on this. We've actively tried to accrue clients through this route or that route. And if that doesn't work, we'll go on to the next one. We don't have budgets where you can do everything, as in small businesses don't have it, we can do everything, but you can use as best informed a decision and just focus on perhaps 2 or 3 things. So I put digital marketing on here. Of course, when I'm talking about marketing, I'm talking about marketing in its fullest sense, not just digital. It's all part of the same pot. But deciding what marketing you're going to do is real hard work. One of the issues that's happening generally, so don't feel bad if you're thinking it, is that marketers, whether in small businesses or large, are working to really fragmented markets. Really fragmented targets. People use lots and lots of different routes to access a service or to comment on a service or to find out information about a service. So it's become increasingly difficult. And of course, they have access to the internet too, to understand which are the best routes to meet people, because often you have to be across many things. But nevertheless, one has to make a start. So, you know, deciding that you should just use, for example, email marketing initially alongside some paid ads in a targeted publication, for example, whether it be, you know, traditional print or in an online version, is a start, provided that publication is right, its profile is right for the people that you're trying to speak to, and you actively building up your mailing list is a form of communication that you feel will keep you in contact with your customer on a regular basis. One of the things you need to think about is continuity. Lots of people start doing activity, and after the first hit, if they don't get the response that they want, they kind of give up on it. That's not how it works. We are so saturated with information and bombarded with stuff, whether it's on television, radio, whatever, that it takes much longer now for messages to get through. So doing it once, unless you're able to blitz, can be quite a challenge to expect to get immediate 100% results. It's very unlikely that's going to happen. So what I'm saying is that whatever activity you do decide to do, give it some time, you know, give it the opportunity of 2 or 3 hits or opportunities to try that method. Don't just go with the one. And if that doesn't work, you've got a way of being able, hopefully, to measure and then hopefully say, well, no, this isn't quite working. Let's move on to another route. But undoubtedly, deciding which marketing route you need to take is hard work. And that's why it's so important to do the research about who your customers are and how they digest information, or find out information about your product or service, because that will cut down the trial and error quite a lot. If they're going to turn around and say to you, yeah, I always look at this site first, then you know there's an indication you need to somehow be associated with it. Or if they say to you, I always look in the local paper, these are indicators for you. Finding time. One of the problems that we all have right now is not enough time. And when you're starting up a business, there are so many things to do to get a business up and running. And usually it's just one person, having to do everything. So completely understand that. You know, let's just talk about social media, for example. Managing your social media just on its own can be a full-time job. There's no doubt about that. But finding the time you do need to do, and you need to find the right tools. The other thing is you need to prioritize. For example, if you are targeting, I don't know, fathers in London and the South East, how on earth do you fill up the time that's required to do the social that does that, identify the publications that they might be looking at, explore the websites, etc., etc., etc. You can't. What you need to do is try and find some sort of blanket activities. So if there are forums or environments in which these guys are at, or publications, understand what that looks like to do ongoing activity, and then narrow down to the activity you yourself can personally get involved in, i.e. that's the best use of your time. So you want to try and automate things as much as possible. You want to try and find tools that are going to help you, that once you set everything up, are going to help you to have more time to concentrate on other important aspects of the business. You know, these might be simple things like using a client relationship management system of some kind. There's lots of different ones out there now. This is a way that of you being able to keep information, a database about your clients and what they're purchasing from you. Often, depending on your website, if it's got a shop element to it, it will of course collate clients' email addresses and things like that, but it perhaps doesn't go as far as one could for marketing purposes. You can go deeper and you can continue to stay in touch with your customers through more bespoke services. So a relationship management system, there's lots of kind of free versions of this. There are things like HubSpot or Zoho or Insightly. If anyone wants the details on this, some of we can send these to you, where you can get access to those systems. You can keep track of who your customers are. You can see when they're interacting with you in a lot more detail, and you can act accordingly. Another example is your email marketing. Don't do it off of your normal email. Try and use one of the systems. You know, if you can't dive into a CRM system now, at the very least, and in fact, if you get nothing else from this session, and you're not doing it already, start your email marketing. Use one of the either free or relatively inexpensive systems that are out there. You know, I'm going to mention things like MailChimp. There's Constant Contact. There's Respondit. There's lots and lots of different ones. Just tap email marketing in your browser, and lots will come up. And they all essentially do the same thing, but they do enable you to be gathering your the email addresses of your contacts and to be creating messages to them on a regular basis. You can plan them all in advance, and that's a big time saver, because people think that, you know, once I'm out there, I'm online, I'm out there, people are going to come to me. Why should they come to you? It's your responsibility to speak to your target group in the appropriate way and to show them that what you're creating, what you're producing is of use to them. So it's your responsibility to stay in touch with them. The frequency and the style of message is where understanding who your target group is and how they digest information and what appeals to them, that's where the kind of the nuance and the sophistication of that comes in place. But, you know, a simple, regular message, you know, every month, depending on the client, is going to go, you know, it's going to mean that you're going to be front of mind. So, you know, using some sort of email marketing system is a good thing, and it's going to save you time. You can plan all your activities in advance. You can actually see who's opening everything. That gives you further indicators of interest in your email marketing. So, you know, some sort of relationship management system, which is basically a big database, email marketing. The other thing that you can think about using is when you're looking at your social media, definitely explore one of the social media dashboards. Trying to manage social media and going into every particular system is just a bit of a nightmare. So there's lots of different ones out there. We tend to have people look at Hootsuite. There's a free version there for you to explore, but there's lots of others. Again, put social media dashboard in Google and you will get some choices. But what they enable you to do is put all of your social media platforms in one place. You can see the feed as it's coming through simultaneously, and you can respond to it. But most importantly, like your email marketing, you can plan your messages and you can schedule your messages. You can do it across all of the media for all at the same time, or you can vary it accordingly. But what that means, equally, coming back to finding time and, you know, making the best use of your time, it means you can say, all right, on a Wednesday morning between 10 and 12, I'm going to spend some time on my social media. That'll be my social media for the next 7 days. So really, really worthwhile looking at the social media dashboards, because social media is all consuming, and although it's very exciting to be on social media and to get likes and all that sort of thing, it's not the be all and end all. The whole purpose from a business point of view on social media is to build profile and to get people into your contact list, because they can jump off of social media at any point, and the only way you're guaranteed to be able to build a relationship more proactively and more concretely is if you can get them into your own mailing list. So that's definitely got to be one of the focuses, no matter what business you're in. Other things are just organising your week more sensibly and prioritising. You know, finding time to do your really boring things like accounting and things like that. Just, you must allocate the time in your week. Otherwise, the new business targets that you have, that remember you will have put in your business plan, that your marketing plan is trying to address, will go by the wayside. And your focus, your best time, is going to be spent looking at the things that you physically have to be at and go to. And the only way you can do that is if you've got the rest of your activities organised in a way that you can feel comfortable that I'm leaving the office, but things are in hand. I'm not really sure where we are with timing, but I'm going to go on. Something else I wanted to mention is I should have mentioned it in the branding, was about kind of what your story is. There's been lots said about sort of storytelling and what your background is, if you like. For example, there's always a story about somebody who started on the kitchen table and then went on to do, I don't know, supply locally, and then went on to start to supply supermarkets and so on and so forth. But the ethos around the business was X, Y, and Z. There was a reason why it was created. Not everyone has that kind of story. You'll have your own kind of story. But it's really worthwhile developing that. Remember what I was saying about the branding. It won't come straight away, but it's really worthwhile developing that, because that's what people buy into. And because people now have so many choices about who they decide to purchase with and who they decide to associate with, having a story that aligns with their sensibilities, with their loyalties, with, you know, where they stand in terms of life and the universe, can really help you. So I did want to mention about kind of developing your story and adding that to part of your website message and your general marketing messages. Let's go on to the next slide. So priorities. I think I've already mentioned it. So many things to do when you start up, I know. I have to say one of the biggest priorities is simply to have a plan, because by writing things down or typing them into a spreadsheet of some kind, it does help to solidify your thoughts. It makes it a bit more real. And also by having it in a scheduler of some kind that has kind of a 12-month timeline, when you can see by your PC that you're due to do plan for the exhibition in September and start doing that planning at the beginning of the summer, at least it's in the back of your mind and you know it's coming up. And also the other reason for planning is that when opportunities come up, there's something about karma, I don't know, but if you've got a plan in mind, a grand master plan, when those opportunities come to you, you will see them. you'll be more open to them. Whereas if you have no plan and things come up and they just come up in front of your face, not good. You can get drawn into things that weren't right for you, weren't right for your business, and end up wasting money. In terms of price, I would say to the startup business, the things you must do: have a plan, build your own database. Don't rely on social media and having a million likes. That doesn't mean anything. You need to get those people off of your social into your contact list or communicating with you directly. That's when you have real communication going on with them. So I'm always going to say, look at email marketing and get that up and running. If you're a maker of some kind, every time you do a show, get people to sign in and in a guest book or something like that. Or if you're at some sort of professional trade show, get people to provide their business cards for a chance to win champagne. Something along those lines. That's when the real work starts. So email marketing, an absolute priority. Clearly, you need to have a website. That goes without saying. There's no way you can go and speak to a business, not have a website, not have it on your card. People are going to just think you're not serious. So websites go without saying. You do need to be on social media. Actually, doesn't matter what business you're in. It may be the fact of being on some of the key social media may not be directly relevant to your business, but people will expect at least for you to have a presence. It may well be all your communication is really on LinkedIn, but to at least have a presence of some kind on the main social media, which is going to be probably Twitter, Facebook, and if you're creative, certainly Instagram. You need to have a presence. You might not keep everything on there. That's not where your main communication is, but people expect to see it, and from there they will click to see where you are to find out more. So yeah, the website's really important. It needs to be current with a blog. Please create a blog. A blog, if you've got a very static site, is a way for you to keep your site fresh. You don't have to be blogging every 5 minutes, and it doesn't have to be like War and Peace. It could be the fact you've won something. It could be a comment about your industry and you talking as an industry leader. It could be a real fun, quirky thing that's related to what you do. But make sure that your blog page is kept up to date so that when people look at it, they perhaps see one within the month at the very least. And then the one before that is in the month before that. At least they know that the site is live. Remember, all these small incremental things about how you look, the language you use, all add up to build a picture about the business, what the business is about, what it's like, how it reacts to things. So having a blog is a really useful way to either direct people back directly to pages into your site or into sign-up things or to an offer or whatever. But also it's really useful as a route for your social media because you can then direct people on your social media pages back to your blog, back to the comment made, back to the thing that you shared because someone shared an amazing piece of information. You put it on your blog and you're crediting them, of course, and but also sharing that, which is what social media is all about. Search engine optimization, SEO generally, pay-per-click, all that whole area, that's huge in its own right, and it does depend on your industry, but it is something you need to look at, particularly if, I would say, there's two ends of the spectrum here. It's worth looking at if you're in a really unusual business. However, if you're in a really unusual business, it's very likely you can identify your prospects in a different way because they're probably easier to see. But in terms of cost, you being able to be first on the page in terms of a search, you've got a very good chance if you do a very unusual thing. And I'm not going to go into the detail of SEO, but you need to make sure your website's optimized if you do that very unusual thing, and that the search engines, you're on all the right directories and they know that you're there. It's very likely if you do a very unusual thing, and I've got a few clients that do, you'll be front page rather than having to pay it. The other side to that is if you are in a really saturated market, unless you have big budget to be able to ensure you're staying up on first page of Google, you need to think really hard about other marketing routes because it can be incredibly expensive. And for most small business starting up, it's not really a viable route. But the things you can do are going to be related to your website. They're going to be related to making sure it's got reciprocal links, making sure that you're in articles online and that will all help drive people to your website and help you in Google rankings. There's lots of things like that you can do. Okay, I think we're probably finishing a bit sooner than we may have thought. One of the things I want to mention, which I haven't really talked about here, is kind of the opportunities around press and PR, especially for startup businesses. You know, the press and PR route has changed enormously, and a lot of the PRs are basically directly operating on social media. That's something for you to really look out for. That includes journalists as well. So something as a startup and as a way of being really flagging who you are to key journalists perhaps in your sector is to make sure that on social media you're connected with those journalists, with those writers, with those influencers. And generally actually just being across what those people are doing in your industry is a good thing. Because we expect to see fresh material every day, if not every hour, about our industries or what's going around us or generally in the news, these journalists, these PR people are looking for new life. They're looking for new businesses. They're looking for the next big thing. And very often they will do call outs on social media asking for, you know, are you a business that does X, Y, Z? You know, are you a woman over 50 who's thinking about starting a business? They will just put it out on social. Definitely worth you connecting with those people and keeping an eye on the key press that are likely to want to do stories on you, keeping them in your either on social media or making sure that they're in your mailing list and you're sending them not every 5 minutes press releases, but press releases that are pertinent to the kind of stories that their readers would want to listen, to read and to listen to. And what else did I want to say? I've talked about blogging, particularly press and PR, because I didn't want to miss that out, because that's, you know, lots of people have been picked up just like that. I've got a client who is a chocolate maker, and she does anatomically correct chocolate. Okay, so yeah, she makes body parts. She also does fossils and things like that. It's such an unusual thing. And she got picked up by Theo Pacitis on his Sunday call-out thing that he does. If you want more information on that, really happy to send you that. But just look up Theo Pacitis. He does a Sunday call-out where he encourages everyone to send information on your business. It's got to be a certain number of words. He does it on Twitter. And if you get picked up, he'll be one of 5. He reposts it, and he's got thousands and thousands of followers. And she got picked up and reposted. And as a result of that, she got to do work with Sega. So, you know, it's definitely worth your while making sure that you're keeping an eye on the key bodies or key people there. I'm going to stop. That's the end of our discussion. That's what I want to talk about so far. If you've got any queries, I'm on the programme. Please feel free to get in touch. Over to you, Casey.
Thank you, Jo. That was very, very informative and extremely interesting. You covered a lot of areas there, and I've noted down a couple of questions. I'm just going to say to our attendees that if they've got any questions on what Jo has covered this afternoon, please just write them up in the questions section, and I will we will answer them. But I've got a couple of questions for you, Jo, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of them is about collecting data. And we talked about email marketing here and CRMs and things like that. Would you have any, and this is a precarious element of marketing now, what with legislation changing and how we use people's email addresses. Do you have any pointers for best practice on collecting and using people's data?
Okay, yes, it's a really, really valid point. I don't know if those here know that we've got this huge thing coming through in May, I think it is, on data protection, basically. Every business will have to be across this. Best practice means, and the requirement of GDPR, which is what it is, General Data Protection, is that we make sure that we are telling people who we are sending information about and we're collating information on, we are telling them we have the information, that they are able to unsubscribe from that information or say they no longer want to be on that database. And equally, we are able to keep a track and could respond to somebody saying take everything off. that's kind of it in a nutshell. Obviously, if you're a bigger company, you have to do slightly more, but if you're a smaller company, that's really the crux of it. So what you clearly want to do is make sure that in the first place, you're collating information about people with their approval. When you use the email marketing systems, the best of those are people need to sorry, I'll get the words out. People need to sign into that, opt in for it, and what I'm recommending to people is to have double opt-ins. So they say, yes, I'd like to receive it, and then it comes back in on their email, and they say on a second occasion that they want to receive the information from you. Other things are when you're going to networking meetings and you're meeting people, verbally you can say, look, great to exchange cards, we'd really love to talk further. Is it okay that I follow up with you and perhaps add you to our mailing list? We have information on X, Y, Z that can be useful to you. Verbally, they're going to say yes, and in principle, that's okay. But what I would say to you is when you, as you should, when you get back to base and you're following up on all those people, you just reiterate in your email that you have to, that they've given permission for you to contact them. But of course, when you put them in your system, whatever your system is, it should be able to keep a track of who those guys are. If they want to come out, they can come out. And one thing you must also do now is say when they sign up, perhaps you could have it on a pop-up or something like that, that's how you're going to use the information. That's the other thing. So, you know, the best things to do are ways of getting information is actually to ask. Say, you know, we have a mailing list. This is how we use the mailing list. We only use it for this. We'd really like to stay in touch. If you get a card, make sure you follow up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that we've experienced at the college with our mailing lists. MailChimp, we mentioned earlier, that who offer a free email marketing services up to 2,000 list members. They have a piece of software where they analyze your lists, and if they detect through their software that they think this is bought lists or you know, lists that will return a lot of high bounce rates, you know, that sort of thing, they won't let you send to those lists. So it's really important that you have opt-ins and double opt-ins and things like that, and people, like you said, are aware of how you're going to use their data, especially going forward from May, like you said. So that's brilliant. And my other question was about email marketing again, just quickly, because I've only got 4 minutes or so. Content-wise, I saw a webinar with the head of MailChimp once, and he was quite annoyed about talking about email marketing. I think he does it a lot. But he was saying, if you've got something interesting to say, then say it. Don't do it unnecessarily for the sake of it. But then you also get into the problem with consistency. And I wondered if you had any pointers for content when you're starting a business.
Yeah, it can be difficult, and often people will come in and say, what the heck am I going to write? You know, what are we going to say? But sometimes the everyday that you do in your business can be quite interesting to people, because it's like normal for you and you just kind of do it without blinking. But just sometimes to tell people, you know, this is what we do, this is how we do it. This is somebody that, a case study in effect, that has been really happy with how we've done this. Or actually, I'm a real big advocate of finding people that do best practice, and they may well be bigger companies than you, and using their content to ask them. I've done it before. I've asked somebody who is much more senior than me, but he sent out material, and I thought, oh my God, this is so spot on. I wouldn't even, you know, insult that person by trying to change it in any shape or form. I'm going to ask permission to reproduce it on the site, and of course had a link back to that person. So there are a few things you can do, but I do agree. I mean, don't be talking just for the sake of it, but I think it's really useful. I think the crux of it is to have regular communication. Your regular communication might be 3 times a year, but nevertheless it's 3 times a year rather than zilch. And it may be that, as I've said before, it's not, you know, a big, huge case study, but it's just a fantastic testimonial. You know, we love to share when clients are really happy, and here's one from XYZ. You know, enjoy, whatever. It could be as simple as that.
I think you're exactly right. That's wonderful. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to. I had a question about metrics mainly about how we choose our metrics for our activity. And one of the things that I think people get quite hung up on is reach or audience or views, which are all quite what we've been calling vanity metrics. You know, it's more about engagement and click-through rates and things like that. I think you covered that quite comprehensively. The only other thing I was going to say was about the apps that are available for MailChimp and Google Analytics and AdWords, Hootsuite, all these services that often have free plans have excellent apps. So for people who are starting a business or on the go, these sorts of apps are going to be absolutely fantastic for you. So,
yes.
Joe, I just want to say thank you very much, and I apologise for messing up your introduction at the beginning there. I misplaced it. Luckily, you had it committed to memory, so that was fine. As all entrepreneurs should. So, I'm just going to say thank you. And one more thing I have to say is housekeeping. Part funded by the European Regional Development Fund, the ERDF. Enterprise Steps is a project led by Newham College with partners London South Bank University and Enterprise for London. Please keep your eyes on our website, enterprisesteps.co.uk, especially /events, as that's where we're going to host all our events there. So please do keep an eye on that. So once again, thank you, Joe. And that's the end of our presentation. And we'll see you all again soon.